Hey, hello there. Welcome to Apparel Redefined. And we've got a great, amazing, incredible guest. John, where are you finding these awesome guests every week now?
Uh, I don't know. I'm going to the right places, I guess. No, but actually, I met Garrick at a conference called ThreadX out in Salt Lake at the Robert Redford Resort, which was amazing. But yeah, we
Mhm.
met on I think day two on a zip lining tour, and
Yeah.
it was pretty cool.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Garrick Jacobi, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I know you're super busy as CEO of Fully Promoted Idaho. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. Living the dream every day of my life.
Living a dream. So yeah, and you've got some great little banners behind you. So all right, we've got a lot to unpack, lots to uncover. And just could you share a little bit, just your background? We're going to slide into your entrepreneurial journey and we're going to dive into your company, what you guys do. But just give us, you're giving us a little tidbit before we went live, but just share a little bit what's going on from your background.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I studied biology in college, thought I was going to become a pharmacist, and um, somehow became a screen printer. You know, standard origin story for a college attendee, right? No, I remember I was literally standing in the pharmacy one day, and I was counting pills because that's what you do when you're a technician. You count pills all day. I was basically like a legal drug dealer, and I'm sitting there counting pills, and I just had this like moment where I'm like, I don't want to count pills the rest of my life, and so the desire to like help people out with their health and fitness was it kind of lost its luster a little bit because it's a lot less glamorous than what you think once you're actually in the pharmacy. Um, and no knock on pharmacists, I think that they serve a great purpose and they study a very difficult education to get to where they need to. But uh, I just didn't see that in my future. So my dad called me up one day and said he wanted to buy a business. He had been laid off for the first time in his life, but he got a nice severance. So we went on a business called Embroid Me. We went 50-50 partners on it. And it was the worst first year of my life for like all things that I could have possibly encountered. I got that year, Forbes had like a top 10 most stressful things you can do, and one of them was starting your own business, which basically, even though we bought a resale, the business's best year ever was $150,000 in 6 years. So for most business people, you'd imagine that's not a very profitable business. And so we had an uphill battle. But on that list, it was like starting a business, buying your home, getting married, um, having a child. I think those were like the top four things. And in that year, I did all basically in about a year and a half, I did all four of those things. So I got married. And then by the end of that year and a half, we were pregnant with our first kid.
Yep.
So obviously started a business and bought our first house. So um, I
Well,
I
Garrick,
had really I had like dark hair and
yeah.
it like started to go gray in that first year when I was 21, something like
Oh,
that.
really?
So
Well, Garrick, you know what? We like to say you're an overachiever. How's that? You know, like Forbes comes out with a top 10 list and you don't knock off one of them. You like, hey, I'm going to plow through all of them. So we
oh,
commend you.
I definitely was like challenge accepted. Let's do this.
Yeah, for sure.
Challenge accepted. I love it. All right. Well, let's keep going. So first year, and what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Is that correct?
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So, all right. So keep going a little bit. So you survived the first year. You
hmm
know what, John, pipe in here real quick. Do you remember your first year in business? Do you remember, did you have any similarities to what Garrick went through?
I did. I mean, yeah, it was absolutely horrible. Um, Again, I went to school for finance and on entrepreneurship, but 2005, six, when I graduated college, entrepreneurship was like just starting to gain traction as an actual course. It's when it was still like in its infancy, sexy stages. And the best part of my college was in my second semester of my senior year, business owners would come in and just tell war stories. And it was like, this is what I want. Right. And then you start doing it and it's like, this is not what I want. And,
For
but,
real.
you know, some of the best advice I ever got is, the water's really deep once you get in, and so is the responsibility. And the responsibility as a business owner that you are now in charge of the livelihood of other people's lives, is something that, I wouldn't recommend on a 22-year-old that, when I got involved in Garrick as well. Um, because and Garrick, you did it even, harder getting married, but I waited. I say I waited. Someone decided to say yes to me, and that was, 15 years later. And one of the things that I say is like, if you're going to do this and you're either newly married or, thinking about getting married, like, you have no idea what you're in for. And either does your partner, as much as you want to communicate. So you've got to have a really strong relationship. But yeah, the ups and downs, not knowing what to expect, hiring, firing, and being 22 years old in charge of 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and like, hey, hey son, let me tell you this. And it's like, what'd you say? Like,
Yeah.
and coming out of playing college hockey and wanting to fight everybody still,
Yeah, right.
wasn't the best recipe. But yeah, you figure it out.
You figure it out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
all right, let's dive in. So, Garrick, share a little bit. Let's dive into Fully Promoted Idaho. How do you make the world a better place? You do a lot with engagement. You do a lot with client employee retention, building
Mhm.
community. How do you guys make the world a better place?
Yeah, I think we like to approach what we do just differently in general because um, I think part of it has to do with that younger childhood desire. Like I said, I wanted to be in health and fitness. I wanted to help people. And so when I got into this business, initially, I really struggled to define what that meant. And I had a really good business mentor that I remember. I was struggling. This was like our fourth year in business, and I really was. I was that typical millennial of like I'm grasping at like what is making a difference, right?
Mhm.
And um, one of our employees bought their first house working for us, and my mentor basically was like, "You are making a difference, man. Like that guy just bought his first house."
Right.
And so, that just at a grassroots level, that just being an employer, to John's point, that was really cool to say, okay, we were able to impact this guy in this positive light. And then the stress of like all these other employees, their livelihood rests on the shoulders of the decisions you make. That was pretty intense. So I really had to look at our business and figure out, okay, if a business comes to us and they want branded t-shirts, why do they want branded t-shirts? Like, what's the goal? What's the purpose? Like, yes, sure, like I think most businesses want to decorate their apparel or put their logo on it because they want to get noticed, or they want to look professional. If you have a sales team and they're selling to their prospects, you want them to be clearly identified that this person works for this company, and it looks really nice. But beyond that, like what really has become apparent to me is like, especially on the t-shirt side of the business, um, I it makes you feel like you're a part of a team. So when everybody's matching, wearing the same gear, drinking out of the same matching water bottles, like it makes you feel like you're part of something bigger. And so we started approaching how we do business with that attitude in mind. Like, okay, yeah, you want to get shirts, but why? What's the goal here? And so we've really focused on asking our clients a lot of questions so we can dive into like what they stand for. Like it, new customers are always kind of dumbfounded when we're like, what are your core values? And they're like, what? Like, what does that have to do with t-shirts? And it's like, well, I really want to understand why you do what you do. Like, even if you're just an aluminum, fabricator, like I want to know, why did you choose that? What difference are you making with with the service or the product that you provide your clients? And so in doing that, it's been really neat because number one, we get to work with people who we've built really good relationships with. If I were to look at like my top 20 clients now, I would say more than 75% of them are the same clients that I started to attain when we first opened up our doors. So I think being able to build those relationships and help those individual businesses grow in a manner that mirrors our growth, it was really neat because to me that's how you measure success. If our customers are successful, then it's going to be reflected directly into our own business.
Yeah, that's how you measure success, is your customer success. I'm like, what an admirable trait, what a admirable benchmark. Man, you just dropped a ton of great nuggets there, Garrick, asking great questions, creating that environment of everybody on the same page and fighting for a cause. Absolutely love that, John. We talk about this a lot. You love sharing, what's your brand promise? And I feel that's tying in exactly with what Garrett is preaching and how he's building his successful business. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, you hear this a buzzword a lot this time of year or this time of year. I mean, usually, people talk about be your authentic self or be yourself. You hear that a lot, right? And what does that actually mean? Versus how can you be actionable on that? And I just think, like, in the limited time I've met Garrick, um, when you start hearing people that you don't know that know you, um, say that same thing, talking to some other fully promoted franchisees that don't really know our relationship, but resonating the same things that Garrick talks about. And then they're communicating things to their customer, trying to lead their franchise in the same way that Garrick is, speaks volumes about what Garrick's done in his franchise community. Um, but yeah, I mean, measuring your customer success as a barometer for your success is perfect, because without the customer, I mean, the old adage, the customer's always right, not necessarily right. But the right customer should be right most of the time, right? And when that's what we really try to look for when growing relationships with clients that we want to work with. Because as a contract decorator, like working with someone like Garrick, um, not all Garricks are the right fit. What are they looking for? What's valuable to them? Is it solely based on price? Is it more based on relationship? Is it I say what I'm going to do and do what I'm going to say? And what's that worth to you? And Garrick has that same responsibility to his clients. So there's such a dynamic there. And I talk about this all the time. It's like kind of like the last frontier, right? Or the last horizon, where it's relationship based sales. It's not what have you done for me tomorrow or today or yesterday, and how cheap can you do it? And I might never see you again. And that's kind of where it gets frustrating, where you go above and beyond like you always do for every client interaction. And it doesn't, you're not necessarily expecting it to be reciprocated, but you want some loyalty, right? Because the way I operate is I fully give trust day one. It's up to you to break that trust. And that, whether it's my friends, family, whatever it is, I do that same thing with a client. If they're the one saying like, hey, I'm not the type of guy that every order is a cry wolf and I must, I got to have a rush. And then every order in the next 3 weeks is a rush. It's like, come on, man, what are we talking about here? Like, and then we have to look at the process and say, are you just not entering your orders on time? Or is it truly you have 14 people come in for a rush? It's like, what's the truth here? So, a lot of different avenues I covered there, but yeah, being authentic in terms of what your commitment is to your customer, what your commitment is to your internal customer, your employees. They have to have consistency, because you can't be everything to everyone, but you need to be something of value and uniqueness to not only your employees, but to your customers as well.
Well, and to your point, John, what I found is when you focus on the relationship and the quality of the service that you're providing, and you make that the priority number one, the growth just comes naturally.
So yeah,
I'm the first one to push, an intense sales program. I love sales, but if you just do a really good job and you provide quality service, your customers will be your best salespeople. So
yeah, for sure.
it's a really natural evolution of business growth when you take things and kind of slow it down. We're just society like tells us like you always have to have this growth mindset, and I'm not against having a growth mindset. Of course, I have big goals and I want to grow, but if you lose sight of what got you there and you don't hone in on really the quality aspect, that growth is always going to be stunted, and you're just going to be growing to grow.
Yeah, I know you hear that a lot especially when you interact with like that mid-level company that went from like 25 to 50, 50 to 100, and you talk to the employees and they say, yeah, it's just not the same place I worked at, where it's like
Mhm.
you have all these levels of bureaucracy and you lose what? That relationship with your boss, with your coworkers, just getting stuff done. There's so many other levels of things that need to happen, and really it becomes a blocker rather than an enhancer. And yeah, I feel like the best companies stay like with a small business size mindset, but executing large scale business plans.
I agree.
That's a fantastic point. So, with that being said, Garrick, you've piqued my curiosity. You kicked off that first year, one of your worst years. You talk about the Forbes list of stressors, and you decided to check off all of them. How did you transition out? Did you talked about your why. What a wonderful celebration that an employee got their first mortgage or bought their first home. That is
Mhm.
just such a huge accomplishment. Anything that you want to share for maybe young entrepreneurs, maybe your younger self? How'd you go from that terrible year up to, getting some momentum where now people are buying homes that work for you?
Man, the struggles continued, I'll tell you that. Like I mean, I did everything wrong, like everything wrong. Um, like I said, that first year was rough. And even though we grew, it's ironic because in hindsight, like there's a lot of things to celebrate, but man, did I do things the hard way. I mean, I struggled with alcohol during that time, to the point where finally it was just like, I have to quit. I mean, my wife basically gave me, an ultimatum, like, hey, this is a slippery slope that you're going down, and if you don't stop this, you're going to kill yourself. And I can't be married to someone who does that. And it was kind of a unique thing because I was a highly functioning alcoholic, I would say. Because, like I said, we still managed to grow our business year over year over year. But in 2016, I quit drinking, and that year we grew our business 149%. So it was the biggest growth year we had ever had. And I mean, I don't think there's any, I mean, the scientific response would be I was very clear headed. And so my focus was very narrow. But I also got better at being a leader, I think. I would say I was a pretty toxic leader in the beginning. I had a pretty estranged relationship with my dad during those first couple of years because we're Italian and like we like to yell a lot. So we would just yell at each other. We both have the same exact personality. So like we had the same goal, like we wanted to be successful, but we would just yell at each other. And so my dad actually ended up getting out of the business, which was hard. It was a hard thing. Um, I had to fire my mom at one point during all this. Like it was rough. Like I'm telling you, like everything that you can imagine that could go wrong in a business, I probably did it in those first 4 years. But it definitely goes to without saying that, like, if you put your head down and just work, you can work your way out of those slumps. And all of those failures were just another learning lesson. So it's like, oh, we've seen this before. Anytime something like that would come up again, um, we just had a different mindset of how we attack that. And so being sober, being focused, all those things definitely led to me becoming a better leader. And I still am learning a lot. Um, I think surrounding yourself with people who want to support you and help you grow is the next critical component of that. So when I ditched the booze, I also admittedly I ditched some people in my life that were, I would say, toxic, that were influencing me in the wrong way. And it was crazy, man. We had 11 employees in 2015, and we went from 11 to 5 in 2016, and we grew 149% with less people. So I think just surrounding yourself with the right kinds of people who can encourage you, because I needed that encouragement. I needed someone to say, hey man, we're going to get through this. Like, I'm going to stay here tonight. We're going to knock these hats out. And I literally remember like sleeping on the couch in our showroom, because we had to knock orders out that had to be done the next day. And it was hard. It was really hard. But all of that got us to where we are today. So I honestly, I mean, I could probably live without some of those struggles, but if I wouldn't have gone through those things, I definitely don't think I'd be where we're at today.
Phenomenal point. I couldn't agree more. All those failures, those mistakes, those hiccups, we're all human and we stumble. And trust me, at my age, we never stop stumbling. And
Yeah.
first off, I want to thank you for your honesty, your candidness, your vulnerability of sharing. You're sharing a lot of the challenges that you face. And we all face, we've all faced those one way or another, whether we want to admit or not. John, what are some of the challenges or your takeaways, some of the challenges that you want to share from your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I mean, you started with how you and your dad started the company. I was curious if that was still going. We're kind of like doing everything opposite of what you did. I never fired my mom, but I fired my sister. So yeah, that was an interesting couple of years at Christmas. Um, but yeah, I just hired my dad. My dad, similar corporate sales, but with many different companies for 35 years and not totally ready to retire and can sell. And, it's an interesting dynamic because it was something I'm like, I don't think I could ever do this. But he has a lot of knowledge and ways of doing things that I don't totally do. And I'm open to giving it a shot. And yeah, he's doing really well. But um, I did have a partner that was a family friend for 14 out of the 19 years I've been doing this. And yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's very difficult. But again, like Garrick said, um, every time you think that like the walls are closing in and you don't know how you're going to get through this, uh, like you just can. It's stressful. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I wouldn't trade anything that I've gone through for where I'm at today. And this industry, as Garrick well knows, it's not a get rich quick scheme. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
definitely a long play. And in today's society with immediate gratification and back to the entrepreneurship where everyone focuses on the beginning, oh, good for you, you're starting a business, and then the end, the exit, but no one talks about the 99.9%, the messy middle, right? Where, warriors are made and businesses are made and relationships are made and tough decisions, indecisions, all the anxiety, the sleepless nights. Um, but every time you meet a new challenge, you just kind of be like, this is something that I know we could get past with a great team. And again, our industry and Kurt, where you focus in manufacturing, it's not where the American economy is headed, unfortunately. Like let's get real about it. Everyone's going to try and do more with less, and Garrick's done a really good job with that. But it's hard to do. Now there's new tools, AI, all different things, but at the end of the day, when you're making a product in our industry that really hasn't had a ton of innovation in the last 60 years, in the last 5 there's been a lot, but you still need people and you need skilled, talented people to do their job and do it well and do it consistently every day. Um, I'd be nothing without my team. I mean, my team is absolutely
Mhm.
phenomenal. We have 7 leaders that have been with me, all of them more than 7 or 8 years. And, I'm a tough person to deal with. I'm Italian and Irish. So I got, when you're talking about temper, man, yeah, for sure. I get it. But yeah, it's about having a great team, coming from an athletic background. Um, I just knew whatever I was going to do, I wanted to stay close to team sports and being in a business for yourself with a great team is the closest thing to being back on the field. Coming into work every day is like coming to locker room. You know what I mean? Like you get to come into the best part of being an athlete is coming to locker room, bullshitting, then I going out to practice, getting the work done, and then, having a beer or a drink or not a pop after, but what have you. Yeah. I mean, it's been a ride and nowhere near are we at the end of the ride. We're just in the middle
Mhm.
and excited for what's to come.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both. Man, very inspiring on all fronts here. And I'm going to go off road for a quick second. Then I want to dive into next branded apparel. So I want to talk about exactly what you guys do at your company, Garrick. That 149%, I can't let that go. 149% growth,
Incredible.
but cut your staff by over 50%. I had a similar situation 100 years ago in my entrepreneurial journey. profitability is what I'm hearing. Can you just share a little bit about what did it take to grow the company 149%? What did it take to, minimize, be more efficient with staff and to grow profitability? What did that transition look like?
It was tough. It was a lot of delegation, trusting guys to do certain jobs. I would say in the beginning, I micromanaged a lot. And again, similar situation. I had a mentor say, "Hey man, like pay this guy what he's worth and let him do his job. Hold him accountable and give him reasonable expectations, but you can't sit here and you can't hover over these guys' shoulders." And as a young leader in particular, when you're 25 years old, like you think that you know it all, and it was quite the opposite. And so when I stepped back and really trusted people to do the jobs they were hired for, um, it allowed me to focus on the part that I really enjoyed. And similar to John's team sports background, I've been an athlete my whole life, and I really started looking at it like I was coaching at my team. Who are my role players? I'm a basketball nut, so it's like, okay, if I know this guy's my point guard and this guy's my center, then like, okay, this guy's really good at defense. Okay, how can I help each person really excel at their strengths? And so my focus really dove into really honing in on those strengths and empowering people and making sure they had all the tools that they needed to be successful. And so then it was neat because we became incredibly efficient with the tools we had. Most fully promoteds don't do their own production. In fact, I would say less than 5% of them do. We were unique in that sense because we were doing screen printing, we were doing embroidery, we were doing vinyl graphics. Like we had a small team, and even today we only have 13 guys. So we're a really lean machine, but everybody has a role, everybody has a responsibility, and those are continuously being defined and chiseled. And to John's point, like I very much feel like we're still in the infancy of our business, even though the barometer for fully promoted success, we're at the top. So it's neat because we have a unique opportunity to, yes, be leading our particular brand at Fully Promoted and to help be an encouragement to other franchisees. But at the same time, internally, I mean, if you were to ask my team, we have a much bigger goal than where we're at. And they'll tell you, like, we're not even close. I mean, they've bought into that mindset. The downside to this now is because, like John, we have some leaders who have been around for over 6 years. Where we run into issues probably more than anything is like as we bring on new teammates. Man, if you don't fit in with the culture, you stick out like a sore thumb. So it's both a strength and a weakness. I think it's a strength in that when you have a really solid culture, you can really just kick ass. But when you bring someone in and they like, it's almost like immediate, like, you're not good. We liked you in the beginning, but you're not going to work out here. And I think that goes to do with any team, right? Like you see it, again, being a basketball nut, look at the Phoenix Suns, right? You got all these freaking rock stars on this team, and yet they can't even make it, past the first round of the playoffs. And to me, that's not a coaching thing, right? It's just a matter of making sure the role players are in the right positions. And I'm not going to pretend to know that I know anything more than these professionals who make decisions like this on a daily basis. But when I look at that, if I had a team just full of really solid screen printers, for example, it would probably be hard for them to collectively just all do that same role because they're all really good at that one thing. Fortunately, we have guys who are really good at screen printing, guys who are really good at embroidery, guys who are really good with customers. Or my brother, for example, he's literally my longest employee. He's been with us since day one. He's a rock star when it comes to client success. And so just leaning into each person's strength and weaknesses, I think that's a very scalable approach. Whatever size business you have, whether it's 5 employees or 500, you got to lean into those strengths, and then you got to stay in your lane. Like the amount of times I want to go and help with things because I'm a control freak. It's like, no, I don't need to do that, So, and I'm still learning.
Well, well, you're very wise in your early entrepreneurial journey for sure. Let's slide in. I want to hit this with both of you guys. Let's talk about branded apparel. So let's get into your expertise, why you guys are on this planet, how you're just delivering, awesomeness on a daily basis. So Garrick, just share a little bit. Why is branded apparel? You've mentioned it multiple times, creating that culture. And it could be the hat, it could be the mug, it could be the t-shirt. Why is branded apparel just so important to build up that culture at a small organization, nonprofit, business, school, whatever it might be? What do you think?
Man, John, I'm going to steal that line from ThreadX. I can't remember what that slide said, but it said like, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was like in a competitive world, which is branded apparel, the only thing that separates functional differences is brand. So, regardless of what industry you're in, that really stood out to me from that particular conference. And we joked around about how I was drinking liquid death at the beginning, or still drinking it, but that guy literally picked like the most saturated market, which is bottled water, and figured out a way to stand out amongst that crowd, right? And I think that regardless of how your feelings are about that particular brand, no one can argue that they've successfully found a way to stand out and separate themselves from standard bottled water. And I think that that's why branded apparel is so cool, is that like if you can really dive into a business's goals and their why behind the what, man, like why understanding their brand is so important. It makes our job really easy once you know that.
That's right. Understanding the why. John, we talk about this a lot. You love using that line. I don't know, Garrick, if you've heard this from John, the brand promise. John, what's
Mhm.
your takeaway here?
Let Derek or Garrick know I took that from Mate as well. So that was
Yeah.
that was a good slide that I keep reusing. But yeah, I mean, it comes back to me on top of what Garrick said, 'cause I support and believe and also agree with everything he said, but also, something we touched on earlier and on another podcast, Kurt, is the whole sense of belonging, like branded apparel, again, the team aspect, the tribal aspect. At the end of the day, we're primal people. We're primal people that need to feel a sense of belonging to feel complete. It's our most innate need. And what better way to do that than wearing, it sounds, everyone wants in their quest to be different and stand out. There's also a dichotomy of looking somewhat part together, having some sort of similarity to be a symbol of your tribe or your group or your team or your company or your family, whatever it is. And that same feeling of belonging is conveyed in a million different ways, whether it be a logo, whether it be a color, whether it be a saying, whatever it is. And we have that unique power, I guess, if you want to call it, to be able to convey that through branded apparel, branded items, whatever it is, and give that person that feeling. And that's like a really convoluted way to say, hey, I'm a screen printer, but it conveys the why. And this is what we talk about with our own team. It's like we make memories, not just apparel, right? And you never forget that feeling of what you were doing at your favorite concert or when you met your wife or whatever. Like if you think back to that memory, you know what you were wearing, and we have a special part of that.
Yeah, I absolutely
Totally.
love that. Yeah, Garrick, what do you want to add?
I was just gonna say it's funny. I love that. Like we make memories. I that line's so true. Like when I proposed to my wife, it was literally the day we opened up the shop. So we had been dating, and I had just learned how to run like a DST file. So I made this file that said "Marry Me," and it stitched out "Marry Me" on a piece of backing, right? So we literally still have that backing. So even though that's not a brand, I mean, that just goes to show like at the very smallest, like entry level portion of embroidery, which I would argue is running a sew out, right? You're like this is a memory that we still have in somewhere in our baby books or wedding books or whatever. But I mean, it's so true, and I love that. I mean, you walk into your favorite restaurant and you see the dude across the room wearing the sports jersey that for the team that you hate or the team that you love, right? It's like,
Yeah.
that guy's a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, not talking to him, right?
Yeah.
But if he's wearing the team you like, you're like, immediately you have this opportunity to just go up and have a conversation with them because of that brand.
Right. Create and
My wife
I
absolutely hates that, by the way, because everyone, like in Chicago, anyone wearing
Oh
this, I'm
yeah.
like, dude, I get your
yeah.
pain. Like, oh, we're in Chicago, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you do have two legends behind you who I absolutely love. So,
Yeah.
John, I'm looking over your shoulder at, the great Vince Lombardi. And then, Garrick, if you just move over a little bit, we see the
Yeah.
famous, man, that was my hero back in the 90s, right? Michael Jordan. So, you guys might be, I don't know, John, you were a little guy for Michael, right?
No, I mean, man, 98, eighth grade. And yeah, I mean, we were too young to like really truly appreciate it. But my cousins are all like 6, 7 years older than me. Like, but we got to experience it again. Like, like the city was on fire during the Jordan era. And then my post college experience with the Hawks, in their little 3 out of 5 year run, it was
Right, right.
really cool, really
Right.
lucky.
So,
Yeah,
and
that picture in particular is my favorite picture because I remember I rewatched this game just recently, and this is when Jordan's standing at the free throw line and he looks over at Patrick Ewing and he's like, "Hey Patrick," and he closes his eyes and drains that free throw. And I love that just that photo and what that means in that moment. And it is totally one of those things, like sometimes you just got to close your eyes and just be a little bit cocky, right? And I think having that attitude of confidence is so huge in whatever you're doing. So that's why we picked that one.
I love
well,
that.
I think having it, and there's having that firm belief in yourself. You can, Michael Jordan, there was a lot of humility with him, but just boy, he had that unstoppable confidence, and it certainly paved the way. Let's wind down. I know you guys are running big companies, and you've got things to do. Last question for you, Garrick. What are you super excited about moving forward with your business, with the industry? What have you got there?
Oh man, the future is really bright for this industry. I think that there's so many cool business owners out there that are in this vertical. That ThreadX conference in particular was a really neat experience for me because it inspired me even more. I mean, um I'm like a sucker for motivational stuff. So like when I go to those kinds of things, selfishly, it really is for my own personal development. It's like, hey, I need to hear these things and I need to be motivated constantly. And what I left from that, there was an economist who spoke, and it was neat to hear some of the things that he had to say about our economy. And whether you agree or disagree with what he said, it was interesting to see what's going on and how many people, probably more than anything, how many people are actively trying to grow what we do, and to see some of these organizations come together and actually want to do things to make us more innovative. John is a great example of someone who didn't like the system he had, and instead of waiting for someone to go out and just create this system, he created his own internal process through software in particular, which to me is, I mean, for a long time has lacked. Now there's some good software companies out there now doing some things in our space to make it better. But in the contract world, before I did any decoration in house, or at a higher level, I should say, we outsourced everything. And even to this day, we literally just started using John after meeting him at ThreadX, for some jobs that we don't want to do in house. And you know, it's cool to see that system that he's built and how it works on the user experience side of those things. And I'm just excited to see. Number one, my hope is that I can contribute to that in some way, because again, that's the am I making a difference? Bug that's inside me. But to see other people do it, that's just inspiring as well. So I'm excited to hopefully see John at more conferences and continue our friendship. And those are things that just motivate me to be in a space where this is unlike, like I said, I actually had a background. I thought I was going to be a pharmacist, and to feel some of those same feel good feelings, but in a way different way. It's pretty neat. I think that's special.
So many awesome takeaways in this conversation, man. I've learned a ton, Garrick, and I just really admire, respect. You know, you've talked about the why. You've talked about how, you know, you're an avid learner, constantly seeking to be your best. You know, you're conquering. You know, you shared very vulnerable. You shared the alcohol situation, dude. My hat is off to you. That is such congratulations, such a massive accomplishment. John, takeaways for you from this conversation with our friend here. What are your thoughts?
Takeaways, yeah. I mean, I just really appreciate both your time. I know this is a new thing that we're doing, and I'm really having a lot of fun with it. You know, getting to talk to a lot of great people and getting more of their stories. But yeah, I mean, in terms of where I'm excited about the industry, I think there's a massive turnover happening, right? Especially in Garrick space, like the promotional side, the franchise side. Um, it's kind of the changing of the old guard, right? Like that space was occupied by, you know, really great individuals and really successful businesses, but that boomer era of that you know category is on this way out, you know, not not dying, but just out of the business. Why? And there's a lot of young professionals coming in with a different mindset, um, and opportunities to expand because it was very siloed, you know, and everyone, and I'm guilty of this as well, you know, where you come from a competitive background and it's like I'm going to beat everybody and I'm not going to tell everybody about it, right? And it's like any secret that I have I don't want to share, I don't want to talk about it, I'm afraid someone's going to steal it, I'm afraid this. And it's like opening up that mindset where it's like if you're able to share what you're doing and talk about what you're doing, um, and help others along, you're being genuine, right? And you're being authentic and you're being real, and people can recognize that. And you don't need to help everybody, and not everyone's a customer, but you might be speaking to someone that could be a great customer. And if you never take the steps to make that conversation or do that type of stuff, you're putting a lid on yourself as a personal, you know, as a person, and then also as a leader, and then also as a father or a parent. So you always got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, is what I say. So yeah.
Totally.
Getting comfortable being uncomfortable. I love it. So, Garrick, just we're wind down. So, in the link below, we'll have a link to your website, to your LinkedIn profile, any other place that people can find you to connect and learn more about you.
Instagram, of course. Come on, man. You got to hit up the Insta. That's like,
Got to get you on
that's
that.
where it's at, right?
Absolutely. So we will definitely,
At Fully Promoted Idaho.
Check
absolutely
out
love
his
it.
media
So,
company too.
that's right.
Yeah,
And just
yeah.
real
Yeah.
quick, your media, mention that one more time. What's your media company?
At Misfit Media. So that's our next fun project. We've been doing that for about 3 years now.
Nice. Awesome. Well, hey, we're going to wind down. First off, we thank you. We applaud you. We commend you. Just keep absolutely crushing it with everything that you're doing. Just love it. We're here rooting you on to massive success. And next time we come back on, you come back on, we can't hear about the growth and just how you're out there crushing it. So, John, we're going to be back here next week. And so, guys, thank you for joining us. And you guys, everybody, have an awesome, awesome day.
Thanks, guys.
These guys.